welcome to CenturyPly now with Firewall Technology presenting India Innovate Movement Season 2 in association with Republic.
Fire is a force that is both a blessing and a threat to human life. From an evolutionary perspective, fire kept away wild beasts, killed germs and nourished humans and illuminated life.
But from then to the 21st century, we have evolved rapidly. However, fire still poses a great threat to humankind. Let's take a look at this visual to understand the impact of fires.
Securing a flat in an urban high-rise is a dream harbored by many. But how equipped are these buildings to deal with fire risks? Fires cause devastating damage that shake up people, property, and the environment. Every year, over 180,000 people die in fires or from burn-related injuries worldwide. Over 95% of these deaths and injuries occur in low and middle-income countries, where risks rise with rapid urbanization. In 2019, out of the 11,037 fire accidents, 57% occurred in residential buildings. Despite a 200-year history, the fire services in India are grappling with massive shortages. With poor compliance to building and fire codes, any large-scale fire in high-rise residential buildings is a deadly disaster waiting to happen. As India's population continues to surge, these issues will only heighten. What the nation needs is a renewed commitment towards strengthening and modernizing our fire services. We need to devise a long-term vision to build robust, fire-resilient urban cities.
So you just saw that audio visual, but the question is, if fire is the most ancient risk known to humans, then how have we innovated over the years to safeguard ourselves against fires?
Well, CenturyPly is one such company which is committed to increasing fire safety across the nation. It champions rather a culture of innovation for the second time in 2 years and has come up with yet another revolutionary technology, an innovation that has the potential to save lives.
And I'd like to introduce our guest for today, Mr. Keshav Bhajanka, Executive Director, CenturyPly Boards India Limited, Sanjeev Sanyal, he is the Principal Economic Advisor in the Ministry of Finance, Government of India, Mr. Amit Bose, Director, DDF Consultants Private Limited. He is an educator, visionary, motivator, institutional builder, and an inspiration to many others. He's also a leading figure in the field of disaster management at national and international level. Bipin Kanatra, volunteer firefighter and a Padma Shri Award recipient, the fourth highest civilian award for rescuing people whenever there is a fire, often putting himself in danger. Dr. Harish Shetty, he is a clinical psychiatrist from Dr. L.H. Hiranandani Hospital. And last but not the least, Dr. Sulbha Arora Bijur, she's a gynec and IVF specialist who is also a survivor from the Kamla Mills fire.
So let me begin with Mr. Keshav. Good afternoon to you. First of all, I would like to ask you, how are you exactly honing a culture of innovation and impacting lives through these innovations at CenturyPly, sir?
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. Our mission at CenturyPly has been, our mission statement has been Sarvada Sarvottam, which means the best always. The meaning of this is that we attempt to provide our customers with the best-in-class products and the best-in-class services that are available in our industry. We try to address all their concerns, and by virtue of this, we attempt to give them solutions that they would be happy to have. If you look at the early 90s, the biggest problem with our industry was that of borer and termite. This was a perpetual problem that had existed since the time plywood had started, and after sleepless nights, after innumerable sleepless nights, our R&D department, our factory team, they were all able to come up with a solution which was anti-borer and anti-termite proof plywood. This later on became the industry standard. Going forward, when water seepage and plywood disintegration due to water became an issue, we came up with waterproof plywood. Last year, when virus was a key threat to every individual, when people were no longer feeling safe in their own homes, we came up with ViroKill technology, which enabled our customers to feel a little bit safer. This year, one of the biggest concerns that our customers have identified with is the risk of fire. The number of fire cases is increasing exponentially, not just in India, but worldwide. And in order to combat this, we have come up with Firewall Technology, which enables CenturyPly products to withstand the effects of fire better than any other product in our category. I think that this culture of innovation is what has led us to where we are today, and I hope it is what will take us to a greater height going forward.
In fact, further elaborating on what you just mentioned, sir, last year, like you said, that you had innovated with the ViroKill, and this year you've come up with the Firewall technology. Can you tell us more about this technology and how is Ply with Firewall technology different from Ordinary Ply?
So, Firewall technology is a revolutionary product from the house of CenturyPly. It entails the use of nano-engineered particles which are embedded into the polymer matrix structure of plywood, thereby giving our plywood superior firefighting abilities as compared to any other product in our category. As you know, furniture which is made from ordinary plywood quickly disintegrates, rapidly spreads fire, and generates tremendous amounts of toxic gas which deter rescue operations. Firewall technology enables our products to combat the spread of fire by drastically increasing the amount of time it takes for fire to spread across the surface of our product and onto other surfaces. Alongside that, one of the greatest risks associated with fire is asphyxiation. Because of the toxic gases that are generated, this is one of the main causes of death in the case or in the unfortunate instance of fire. CenturyPly, Firewall technology enabled CenturyPly reduces to a mere fraction the quantum of toxic gases that are generated once our products ignite. Alongside the above, once the external source of fire, for instance a burning candle or a burning curtain or some other object, are removed, Firewall technology enables our products to self-extinguish the fire. Thus, in the case of Firewall technology, or in the case of our products with Firewall technology, our customers get valuable time to save themselves, to save their family members, perhaps even to save some cherished personal items.
Well, one could just imagine how difficult it would be if such kind of a situation really arises there. But God forbid that doesn't happen to anyone. But Dr. Harish Sethi, thank you very much for taking out your time. Dr. Sethi, what is that mental impact of experiencing a fire? Because there are many things that are associated with it, especially if we talk about the post-traumatic stress disorder. This might be something that many of those people might be suffering from.
Absolutely. If you actually are caught in a life-threatening fire, or if you see a fire which has caused destruction and loss of lives or loss of lives, it becomes an image. This image is locked in the mind along with emotions, and it becomes a memory. Because the emotions are all about fear, anger, sadness, the memory is locked with the emotion and it stays inside, and then it becomes an intrusive memory, because the emotion with the memory drives the thought and brings the entire memory back into consciousness. Any attempts to forget the memory represses it so that it bounces back again. So these memories become continuous unless intervened. These memories can last throughout life unless intervened, and these memories can initiate post-traumatic stress disorder, which has other symptoms of sadness, fear, nightmares, not being able to sleep properly, inability to feel pleasure and sadness, and many more. So post-traumatic stress disorder can be a permanent illness in a person who has not recovered after viewing a traumatic incident related to fire, or has not been treated after being involved in a traumatic incident where fire and destruction were the most important two components. So it's so important that if one faces a memory like this, an event like this, that we treat the person early, so that we resolve the feelings around the memory, so that the memories can be quarantined and the patient recovers and he does not experience all the symptoms which I mentioned and I described.
All right, I want to also take a quick question from Mr. Keshav Bhajanka. Really to understand, sir, that how can the firewall technology help and protect firefighters in their mission of averting casualties?
As I've already mentioned, that CenturyPly plywood enriched with firewall technology is best suited to fight fire. Our plywood doesn't disintegrate easily and doesn't act as a medium to spread fire like ordinary plywood does. Thus, firewall technology helps to halt the spread of fire and gives additional and crucial time to consumers and firefighters in case of an unfortunate event like fire. The more time the fire takes to spread, the easier rescue operations become. Along with this, one of the biggest deterrents to any of rescue operations in the case of fire is the quantum of toxic gas that gets generated, which can cause asphyxiation and may lead to a loss of life. Firewall technology enabled CenturyPly reduces the toxic gases substantially, paving the way for firefighters to enter and save innumerable lives.
That is very, very important to note, especially in these times. There are several fires that are being reported in many of those areas, but getting that hands-on experience. Mr. Bipin Ganatra is also with us on the broadcast. Bipin ji, अगर आपको मेरी आवाज आ रही है, बहुत-बहुत धन्यवाद, आपने समय निकाला और हमसे बात करने के लिए आए. आज एक विशेष मुद्दे पर आज हम चर्चा कर रहे हैं सर, जहां तक अगर हम शहरी क्षेत्रों के बारे में बात करें और वहां पे आग बुझाने में आपको किन-किन चुनौतियों का सामना करना पड़ा है, आपके जितना एक्सपीरियंस रहा है अब तक?
शहरी जगह में आग में प्रभावित तो ऐसे हुए हैं कि वेयर हाउस स्टैंड रोड में मरते मरते बचे हैं, और जो स्मोक है वो मेरे पास तो कोई फायर इंस्ट्रूमेंट नहीं है, कोई ऑक्सीजन मास्क नहीं है, कुछ नहीं है. हम तो स्टार्टिंग में चंपल और जो पहना हुआ है वो उसी हाल में अंदर चले जाते थे, मगर आफ्टर कुछ ईयर के बाद एक मीडिया ने, स्टेटमेंट की मीडिया ने दिखाया कि भाई ये आदमी हर फायर में जाता है, इसकी सेफ्टी के लिए आप क्या कर रहे हैं. तब हेलमेट दिया गया मुझे और गाउन बूट दिया गया, और बाद में आगे के जो दमकल मंत्री थे उन्होंने गोल्ड मेडल दिया जब नंद्रा मार्केट की आग बुझाई. धुएं में अंधेरे में ढुकना और पर्टिकुलर जगह को देखना कि कहाँ पर क्या है, और उसको स्टडी करने के बाद अपने बड़े ऑफिसर को और अपने टीम को बताना कि इस जगह ये चीज़ है, आप ऊपर ये चीज़ को लाइए, कहीं कोई गेट बंद है या शीशा लगा हुआ शीशा का गेट है तो गाउन बूट उतार के हम उसे गाउन बूट से मार के तोड़ देते, फिर गाउन बूट पहन लेते थे, क्योंकि गाउन बूट की हिल बहुत ज़्यादा हैवी रहती है, उससे कांच तुरंत टूट जाता है, ब्रेक हो जाता है. और इस तरह चुनौती देखिए, नो रिस्क नो गेम, जिंदगी रिस्क है और रिस्क लेके ही काम करना पड़ेगा. इससे अगर डर जाएंगे तो काम नहीं कर पाएंगे.
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल, काफी चुनौतीपूर्ण रहा है जहां तक आपका एक्सपीरियंस है, और हम इसके बारे में और चर्चा करेंगे आगे. वी हैव टू स्लिप इनटू अ शॉर्ट ब्रेक राइट नाउ ऑन CenturyPly now with Firewall Technology presents India Innovate Movement Season 2 in association with Republic. We'll be right back.
Welcome back after the break to CenturyPly now with Firewall Technology presents India Innovate Movement Season 2 in association with Republic. By 2050, almost 70% of the world's population will live in cities. India and all countries around the world must see the importance of fire safety when building and extending cities.
Absolutely. To talk more on that, Dr. Arora is also with us right now. Good afternoon to you, Dr. Arora, because you are a survivor yourself. From the Kamla Mills fire incident in 2017 to now, that has the fire safety norms that are now being followed up in buildings and many of those government offices. Ma'am, do you believe that such kind of public spaces has been improving or not?
Yes, the Kamla Mills tragedy was rather unfortunate and to a large extent could have been prevented if there were better safety norms in place. And in the aftermath of that, I am aware that the BMC was very particular. They went on very strict inspection rounds of all the F&B outlets, at least I do know of that, to ensure that the fire safety norms were in place. The fire exits were clearly marked, fire extinguishers were present, the staff was trained, drills were being carried out, and I do know that a lot of things were streamlined after that. Similarly, in my clinic as well, for example, we have fire exits clearly demarcated, fire extinguishers, we've had fire drills here as well. There have definitely been improvement in these safety precautions. Obviously, it's not going to be all establishments that are following them, so there is still room for improvement and much needed improvement.
Absolutely, because there is always a room and more scope of improvement that is needed there. But बिपिन जी, आपने बात करी थी किस तरीके की चुनौतियों को आपका सामना करना पड़ा है, लेकिन अगर हम ऊंची इमारतों के बारे में बात करें तो उनकी तो चुनौती अलग ही लेवल पे होती होगी. आप उनसे कैसे डील करते थे सर?
देखिए, चुनौती तो रहती है, हर स्पोर्ट में हर तरह के अलग किस्म के आदमी मिलते हैं, मगर उस चुनौती से अगर डर जाएं या फायर से डर जाएं तो हम मोरली बैक हो जाएंगे. तो उस चीज को हम ध्यान नहीं देते हैं. हमको क्या करना है, अंदर किस तरह एंट्री लेना है, एंट्री लेते हुए किस तरह की पोजीशन है, अपने बड़े ऑफिसर से या किसी को बताना. जैसे नंदराम एसी मार्केट, जिसमें अंडरग्राउंड में जो आग लगी थी, 3 दिन तक कंटिन्यूस 500 डिग्री टेम्परेचर था, कोई जाने नहीं सक रहा था. मैंने सेकंड डे रिस्क लेके अंदर गया, बॉइल वाटर में पूरा तैर के आया और आके डीसी सेंट्रल को बताया कि सर कोई दुकान में आग नहीं है, आग अपनी जो सेंट्रल एसी डेथ है वो शॉर्ट सर्किट हो के हीटिंग चेंबर हो गई है. वो जब तक हीटिंग चेंबर बंद नहीं होगी तब तक ये हीट रहेगी. फायर ब्रिगेड तो आ जाती है, मगर लेंदी बिल्डिंग में फायर ब्रिगेड आने से पहले उस बिल्डिंग के अंदर में भी फायर इक्विपमेंट है कि नहीं, कोई फायर फाइटर है कि नहीं. अगर बिल्डिंग में अगर हर कमरे में आजकल केमिकल निकल गया है कि वो बोतल बस्ट हो जाने से 1 किलोमीटर एरिया में ऑक्सीजन अरेस्ट हो जाता है, उससे आग बंद हो जाती है. तो ऐसे सब चीज़ें बाजार में जो टेक्निकली निकली है उसकी इंक्वायरी करके उससे घर में हर कोई 1 बोतल घर में रखे तो ये सेफ्टी रहेगी. हम हर पब्लिक डिपेंड फायर ब्रिगेड के ऊपर करती है कि भाई फायर ब्रिगेड आएगी, फायर ब्रिगेड आती भी है, मगर उससे ज़्यादा हमें भी सेफ्टी लेनी है कि हमें क्या करना चाहिए. उस विषय में लोकल थाना से और जो फायर फाइटर है, एजेड फायर फाइटर, उनसे सलाह लेके उनके साथ बैठ के सजेशन लेना चाहिए कि सर हमें क्या करना है.
और ये आपकी जान के ऊपर बनाती है बात. अगर आप इस तरीके के रिस्क के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं, मिस्टर अमित बोस, we have been talking about high rises. Do you believe that the fire risk is more in high rise buildings, sir?
Absolutely right. Fire disaster is more prone in high rise building. There are reasons for that. First thing is there has to be time lag between the rescue team comes and the victims, those who are trapped, they have to be reached. So naturally for high rise building that time increases and the time for the rescue becomes less and less. That is one factor. Second factor is high rise is inevitable, as you rightly said just a little while ago, that 50% of the world population will be living in urban areas. In India, in fact, we will be crossing more than 50% by 2030. We are already at 40% now. So, and what is urban area and why it is different? See, there are UN resolutions, United Nations Habitat resolutions for this, and all the member countries of United Nations are part to this, that we have to go vertical because land is shrinking and population is concentrating, so density is increasing. In the process, what is happening? There is the way we are planning our urban areas, the density obviously has to increase because the lesser area we have to accommodate more activities and more population. When we are having a high density, we are going verticals. In the verticals, what we are creating microclimate within the urban area, which is different than the 50 kilometer away or outside the periphery of the urban area. And then there are funnel effects which is created because of the towers that are coming, vertical towers in the form of residential or commercial activities. So as you know, fire will spread as with reference to the wind velocity at that time, and when there is a heat, the wind will come from outside and create a vertical shaft kind of situation. So unless we take care of these things, unless we take at the macro level planning of urban areas, we are creating something new from the fire point of view, and creating more problems for the gentleman who is coming for rescue or the fire department, fire safety department of the city. That is one component. If you permit me, I will go a little further.
Right.
That when we are going vertical with the advent of the new materials that we have for the facade outside, we have those are unrated. If we have to have a regulation, which kind of material will be there on the facade and in the interior. Now, CenturyPly is of course doing it for certain activities, which is a very good thing. I must congratulate that your team, the CenturyPly team, for that. But there are n number of materials which constitute a building. We have facade outside, we have inside, we have interiors, ceilings, floorings, and all those things. So we have to have, whenever we are going vertical, where the rescue team will take more time to reach. Obviously, we have to have different set of materials in the set, and we have not yet applied our mind in this direction. So that is very, very critical in urban areas. Maybe I will wait for
In fact, Mr. Bose, I want you to further elaborate on that, because it is very important to understand from you how growing cities and countries can improve in regard to fire safety and emergency relief, and how can cities reserve physical spaces for fire stations, fire hydrants and fire lanes or parking spots. Okay. How will that benefit us, sir?
It's a very good question, in fact, and that is the demand of the time also, especially not only from fire resistant point of view, but from other disaster resistant point of view. Yes, we have developed this subject from the perspective of disaster resilience. Fire is one such disaster, which doesn't give you any time, and it spreads very fast. And it goes from one building to another and so on in the whole neighborhood, it spreads. Now what is happening here is our town planning norms, we have certain guidelines and norms which does not give sort of provision for these kind of spaces. So this is the high time that we are here, that we have to change our norms of urban planning. Now try to understand the dichotomy here. On one hand, we are saying that we don't have urban land for future development, so we have to go vertical. Having said this, now we need more land for people, those dense population, to accumulate at a place where they are safe from that particular disaster. In this case, we are talking about the fire. Now, unless we change the norms of the planning in an urban area, these spaces will never be created. That is, as far as the open space is concerned. And that obviously there can be innovation of designing those open spaces. It could be multi-tiered spaces, not necessarily multi-story, but multi-tiered and whatever. There will be many such innovations which will emerge once there is a demand and there is a statutory demand from that perspective. So the drill, see, not that we are not doing anything, we are doing quite a number of things, good things. But thing is, in case of an emergency or fire, people don't know how to use that facility. So every 6 months, every 1 year, drill has to be there.
True, sir.
Without that, all your systems will fail when it is. So and this drill, let us have some incentives, some penalties, and let the persons or the organizations who are well equipped be decorated with some prize or some kind of thing. So this is
but like Mr. Bose, you said that it is very important when it comes to innovation in developing newer techniques, and which is why I want to take the next question to Mr. Sanjeev Sanyal, because every new innovation starts as an idea, and we want to understand from you, how can India hone its young minds to produce more innovations like these on a larger scale?
Well, obviously, one part of it is the requirements in our system. In this particular case, the innovations are things that will eventually have to get embedded into building laws, bylaws, and town planning. So in different areas, innovations develop differently, but it is particularly complicated in this area, the specific area, because it has to be embedded into the laws, rules, regulations. Very often, that is the point I was making earlier, that innovation cannot happen, like say in the IT sector, where companies are doing their own innovation and the best person, whoever is the most competitive, wins. Here, the technology only gets taken up when the rules and regulations take it up. So this is why we have to be able to have a system by which the rules and regulations, the bureaucracy has to continuously update the rules and regulations. This is not the stuff that gets done so much by legislature, but the bureaucracy has to continuously update it. Now, this cannot be done by some stroke of changing a rule, or this has to be a part of a culture of being able to take new innovations. And a lot of it is just common sense. But anyway, at the very least, we should be able to take global standards, be having testing facilities so that these innovations can be demonstrated, and they can be then be imbibed into the planning system. So unfortunately, we are not set up to do this because the system of rules and regulations is largely one based on precedent, which is that we are always backward looking. Secondly, there is a serious lack of expertise in the bureaucracy to understand technical aspects such as, for example, the fire or even much of town planning, building codes, etc. There is no expertise in the system to be able to understand what is needed, far less to be able to upgrade to new technologies. So I think we need a different way of doing this. I mean, I don't have a solution, but I'm just pointing out to you there is a cultural change needed to do this. Our building laws, incidentally, need to be upgraded for multiple reasons. This is just one, there's just one reason why we need to do it. There are at least 50 reasons why we need to upgrade our laws, building laws, and so on. But that requires that you have officials who understand the subject. Our system of generalist bureaucracy may work for certain kinds of cross-cutting things, but for things which are specialists, they need to have specialists doing these things.
Absolutely, sir, because what you're talking about is a time-taking process, and there is more accountability and awareness that is needed. But Mr. Sanyal, how optimistic are you, and what is your long-term vision to build a resilient urban Indian city, sir?
At the end of it, it has to be done at the state level. It's a very bad idea to have national level building codes, national level urban planning, master planning. In fact, this entire top-down approach is the source of the problem. Anyway, the good news is, at least intellectually, this idea is spreading that you need bottom-up urban thinking and that they have to be flexible. This whole idea that Chandigarh is a great city because some Le Corbusier 50 years ago came up with a plan, this entire approach has to be thrown into the dustbin. We need a local vision for how a city needs to be and to evolve with it. You're seeing one experiment being done with ideas being solicited for the next 25 years for the Delhi master plan. I think the word master plan itself is wrong, but anyway, the idea generally is right, that you need to have a system where you essentially keep changing rules and that basically you need to keep updating the master plan. Master plan is not like some sort of a mechanical textbook on how to do what you have to do. It is just the latest set of rules that you need to move forward. So I think this idea of a responsive feedback loop based urban codes, I think needs to be done, but it'll best done at the local level, at the states and union territories doing it. It's a very bad idea to do it top down.
Absolutely. Very important point you make there, sir. And also wanting to understand from Mr. Keshav Bhajanka, what are the quality standards of firewall technology and is the performance of this technology certified by external agencies?
So, Sanjeev sir has stressed the importance of regulation quite a few times, and I'm very happy to tell you that CenturyPly enriched with firewall technology is certified as the best in class by Indian, American and British standards when measured against critical parameters like flammability, spreadability, smoke develop index and penetration. Thus, CenturyPly is best prepared to fight fire.
But talking more about this technology, Mr. Keshav, how is it going to cost the consumers more? I think that would be a very important question there. They would love to know.
You see, firewall, ViroKill, the fake proof, QR code technology, none of these are separate products. They are all value additions to our standard CenturyPly range of products. So these don't cost our customers anything else. This is a small way for us to repose the faith that our customers have in us or have had in us for so many years. This is a small way in which we are attempting to solve their problems, and as there is no extra cost, I think CenturyPly will be the most rational choice for you.
Right. I also want to bring in Dr. Harish Shetty to understand the psychological point of view of it, sir. What are the stages that people go through while recovering from a fire? Because obviously there is shock, there is anger, there is slowly, a person reaches a stage of acceptance. So this is from a layman's point of view, but how is it that you deal with such patients?
In fact, the shock is so immense and the person is numbed. And when he or she is numbed and shocked, he should be left alone, allowed to rest, allowed to sleep, and allowed to be fed as much as necessary. Slowly the numbness and the ice in the brain melts, and the person starts verbalizing his feelings, thoughts, his sensations, and as he or she verbalizes, the mental professional allows him or her to verbalize emotions, thoughts and feeling. And slowly he or she might have nightmares, he or she might need a lot of reassurance, a lot of understanding. At the same time, tools to dissolve the emotions associated with memories, tools to dissolve the trauma or resolve the trauma associated with those memories slowly takes over. Having said that, as they recover, then slowly they are able to recall a good experience of life, positive experience of life, and the painful experience slowly recedes. What happens immediately after the shock phase is that there's a cloud of pain, of fear and anger which stops you from experiencing anything good. So as the cloud slowly moves away, as the pain slowly dissolves and gets resolved, as the memories get quarantined, the person slowly starts recovering, and during recovery he or she may need a small dose of medications, but a lot of counseling and trauma therapy, which could be CBT, which could be NLP, which could be EMDR, etc., can help. Support from the family and support from members of the family is also important. At times, visit to the place of the disaster helps the person to review the entire situational inside the mind, and also share the grief and come back from that place, also helps them to recover. Lastly, visit to spiritual places to remember and grieve those who have passed away also helps recovery of the survivor from the fire.
We have to step into a short break. In CenturyPly, and now with Firewall Technology presents India Innovate Movement Season 2 in association with Republic. We'll be right back.
Welcome back after the break to CenturyPly now with Firewall Technology presents India Innovate Movement Season 2 in association with Republic TV.
Well, innovation is spurring entrepreneurship and thereby boosting India's economy. Essentially, innovation is a mindset, a vision. An innovative mindset empowers not only individuals but the entire businesses.
And this is how we continue with our discussion and take the next question to Mr. Bose, because Mr. Bose really wanting to understand that places like Rio de Janeiro have initiated random fire safety checks across the city targeting local businesses. Taking examples like these, how can we take proactive steps to check fire safety in residential buildings and commercial complexes, especially at a time like now when so many fires are being reported?
See, after the 74th and 75th amendment in the constitution in 90s, it is not planning. Now urban planning is not a top-down approach, it's a bottom-up approach now. It is local authorities, local governments are allowed, are rather permitted to do the town planning of that area. So this I wanted to have a point of clarification. It's not a top-down approach, it is a bottom-up approach now. But ultimately, whatever plans are made, state cabinets approve that and it becomes a legal law. That is the point of clarification. Now coming to Rio de Janeiro experience and what we can do. See, rules, regulations, implementation of that is very good. You have made a new construction and all, it has been done perfectly. But whether it is because if fire may happen in your building, in this lifetime of the building, or may not happen. But we have to be alert and ready. For that, as I told you, the drills are compulsory. It should be made compulsory in the urban life. Every 6 months, every 1 year, depending on the type of structure, type of activities going on in that particular building, we may have the drills. Drills will have two positive functions. First thing, your equipments and all the parameters which are there for fire safety will be tested, real-time testing. Second, people will be aware and they will be, capacity will be building in case of an emergency fire or emergency bell, what you have to do. For example, in a multi-story building or 20-story, the persons living up to 3rd story, they have another way to react to that. 3rd to 15th story, they will have another way to react, and 15th and above story, they have another way to react. Now, they are not common. So, unless we have the drills at certain interval, all your norms are not going to work in case of real fire. So, that is the first thing what Rio de Janeiro is doing.
Right.
It can be done. It's not a difficult thing. It has to be implemented properly by the local authorities or the neighborhood authorities. So this should be made essentially in urban life. In fact, this is as far as the residential and commercial areas are concerned. But there are certain activities, for example, let us say hospital building, or where the people are being treated. In case of fire, their approach of rescue and relief will be totally different than those who are able-bodied person living in their houses or the offices. So the norms have to be made. Again, and the users, for example, hospitals and so on. Similarly, for industrial buildings, and now we are going vertical. Industries are going vertical now in urban areas instead of horizontal spread. So their norms will be different. What I am trying to say in conclusion is, Rio de Janeiro experiment is only for, they have done it for a particular set of activities, but it should be applied across the whole activities, residential to commercial to industrial, to hospital and so on. And school building, for example, now college building, where the small kids are there. So drill is, in my opinion, compulsory. While doing drill, you will see the difficulties of using those facilities which has been provided as per the statutory laws of the land. And accordingly, the fire safety authorities of the state or city will have to reorient their approach vis-a-vis the buildings. So I think it is must, and it should be made compulsory in the urban living.
Absolutely, because you've been talking about sensitizing and creating awareness there. But Mr. Bhajanka, have you had any feedback from the customers and the dealers about the new firewall technology, sir?
I think the biggest parameter of success is when we get feedback from our customers. You'll be very happy to know that I have received calls from dealers thanking me and saying that going forward, they cannot imagine of a better product solution than what the company has offered today. There have been very, very happy customers who have given feedback to our sales team saying that if you continue to innovate like this, they will certainly be befikar, which is our basic philosophy. I think as a producer, there is no bigger compliment that you can get than when consumers come back to you with a smile saying that our product has solved their needs.
But according to you, sir, in terms of business practices, why do organizations need to adopt technology to grow continuously?
I think in today's time, we live in a world which has embraced technology, be it for normal communication, space visits, be it for Salesforce automation, SAP for say a business process, or for biotech, for medicines. We are evolving really fast in technology. At CenturyPly, we focus on our stakeholder needs, and then we try to put the best technology for building efficiency and ease. And this is across product or service deployment or business processes or communication. If you want to remain the market leader, or for that matter of fact, if you want to become the market leader, if you want to grow, if you want to see a bright future for your company, there is no option but to build and deliver with technology.
Very true, and it certainly is in the larger interests. If I can go next to Dr. Harish Shetty. Dr. Harish Shetty, how can we increase psychological preparedness to deal with such fires? Because nobody ever imagines to be in a situation like that. But can we be better prepared?
Time is not always the best healer, and that's the fact. Time is always time is the best healer is a myth. Psychological preparedness would mean wherever you stay and wherever you work, you need to first examine whether the fire safety precautions are maintained. Number 2, always participate in fire drills. Number 3, learn from people who have been through this experience and learn the consequences of what happened to them when they faced this entire disaster. Number 4, educate the people in the building, educate your children, educate everybody. Number 5, when you have a fire prevention program, see to it that it is monitored, checked repeatedly. Many people have fire extinguishers in their homes, but they don't know how to use it. Only the sight of the fire extinguisher helps them to feel secure, but that's not true. So awareness, caution and being alert are the 3 maxims for preventing you not only from fire, but also from any other disasters. Disaster preparedness would mean participate in the disaster drills in your locality, in your building, in your workplace and in your area.
Dr. Arora, even as customers, when we visit a new place in these days, we have to do a COVID safety protocol check. Do you believe that that should also be in our mind and it should be extended to the checks to fire safety too? Do you believe that public spaces should mention the fire safety standards before any individual or any customer enters such a building?
Of course, it definitely should, but in practice, we don't land up thinking about it. Now, see, somebody who's going to a restaurant to enjoy a good dinner not necessarily has in mind to make a note of fire exits or to check whether the fire extinguishers are actually there. Now, for example, at Kamla Mills, where I was, if I may share, when we reached there, the entrance to the place was so narrow. It was a very long passage. And I even remember thinking that it's so narrow that only one person can either enter or exit. 2 people can't even enter that passage together. At the end of that long passage, it opens up into the restaurant. It was an open, terrace rooftop thing, but completely covered by tarpaulin. I remember telling my friend that it's December, why is the tarpaulin still there? I did not make a note whether there are fire exits, whether even fire extinguishers are there, till the fire actually caught. And not just that, shisha was being served there, and I remember telling my friend, why are they serving shisha? It doesn't look like it's safe. So you see, although I have subconsciously made note of all these things, I haven't actually bothered to leave the place or to, wonder that you don't expect something like this to happen. And what started with such a small spark, I was in fact the first one to notice it. Just as I was paying the bill, because shisha was going on in one corner and the blue tarpaulin was there, we saw a small spark in the tarpaulin. I pointed it out to my friend. I said, look, it seems to have caught a bit of a fire. It was only as small as a candle flame. You won't believe it. My friend was quite amused. He said, you pay the bill, let me take a video. In the amount of time that he took his mobile out of his pocket and switched on the camera, that small candle flame had whooshed across the entire roof, and within a few seconds, we had chunks of burning roof falling on us. There were more than 150 people there. Naturally, they all made a beeline for that tiny narrow passage to try and get out of it. It almost led to a stampede kind of a situation. There was a woman who pushed me and I fell to the ground. And because of that, I couldn't make my way to the exit. My friend had already reached there. By the time he could turn around and see that I had fallen and tried to come back to help me get up, fire had fallen all around me and there was no way we could reach the exit anymore. And since we didn't know what to do, we went indoors. There was a small indoor area and we ran towards there because we had to escape the flames. Even though I remember thinking, great, now we are trapped because the one exit, we're not able to reach it. And a lot of people in panic went and hid in the bathrooms. That in fact turned out to be the most tragic of all because they just remained trapped there. And most of them even lost their lives to suffocation and carbon monoxide poisoning before the fire even reached them. And as we went inside, I didn't go to the bathroom. I had the presence of mind to realize that's not a good idea. So then the only other place left for the kitchen. And I remember thinking, why are we going into the kitchen? There are, the cylinders there or gas pipelines there. But the staff was very helpful. They kept, calling out and saying, go through the kitchen, go through the kitchen. At the back, there is another exit. So when we ran through the kitchen, there was an exit at the back. that took us to the outside of the building, and from there we tried running all the way down. You won't believe how fast this fire has engulfed the entire building, that the whole time that we were running down from the 6th or the 7th floor, the advancing fire was only a couple of inches behind us. At every level that we ran down, when we ran down from the 7th to the 6th floor, we could hear the thuds of the 7th floor ceiling collapsing. When we came down to the 5th floor, we could hear the 6th floor ceiling collapsing. So by the time we managed to just rush out, if I was a few seconds later, I would have either been seriously injured or not survived, because most of the people coming out after me were in fact had minor to major burn injuries. I was fortunate I didn't have any. We also found out later that the ones who had managed to reach the narrow exit and tried to exit from there, first of all there was a stampede kind of a situation, they were all trapped because the lift had to be shut due to the fire, and the staircase at the front of the entrance was locked. It was being used as a storage space rather than a staircase, so they had no way out. So, as you were saying, that should we be checking for fire safety protocols? Now I do. Hindsight is 20/20. But if you go to a restaurant, I'm sure most customers wouldn't bother to even take note of where are the fire exits.
Well, that's a very, very traumatic incident that happened, and that is a very, very narrow escape that you had, Dr. Arora. But thank you very much for sharing your experience with all of us. Because right now, if you're talking about the innovations, which are the primary engine of our development, it holds the power to save, to enhance, and to impact lives. And that is what Firewall Technology is all about. It is a step further in moving towards an India where this culture of innovation is ingrained in every mind, where every citizen and business approaches the problem with an innovative solution.
Very true, and this will help India and Indians stay relevant and surge ahead in these changing times. With that, we come to an end of CenturyPly now with Firewall Technology presents India Innovate Movement Season 2 in association with Republic TV. We request you all to stay safe, stay aware and stay updated with Republic.
Thanking all our guests joining us here on the broadcast. Thank you.